So welcome to the Happy House Hunters. This is the third Monday of each month. We are here talking about real estate. And with the Happy House Hunters, we go through the 6 F's of real estate investing. We talk about how to find the deal, then how to fund the deal. Then, of course, once you find it and fund it, then you have to fix it. Depends on, how bad it is, on what rehab costs you're going to have. You have to fix it. And then once you find it and you fund it and then you fix it, now you have to decide, am I going to flip it or am I going to hold it and fill it? So are you going to flip or are you going to fill? And then finally, the third or the 6th F is then what is your freedom number? How many flips or fills do you have to have so that you can make that day job optional? So just real quick, how many folks are full-time real estate on the call today? I am. Anyone else full-time real estate? Jonathan, you're full-time now. Am I correct? You're not working any other job. You're full-time in the real estate. Anyone else full-time? Yeah. Rowan, kind of got a little wavy hand there, kind of
So
full-time.
we have a general contracting company.
Okay.
So we do some of our own flips, but we also work for investors and stuff like that. So I guess you can consider me full-time real estate.
Yes, you are definitely full-time real estate. Yes, I get that. Okay, so that's how many that are full-time real estate. How many want to be full-time real estate? I do. It took me a minute to get there, but I finally made it. I have 28 doors, and so that is sufficient for income for me, along with flips and having to rehab in between tenants and all of that sort of thing. We can do a lot of the work ourselves. We have the skill set to do some of that, but we're getting old. Yeah. And so we don't want to do as much as we used to do. Just recently, to give you a little bit of background about me, I started out in corporate America and then wasn't making a lot of money, always was struggling. And so I decided to get into the salon industry, and Jonathan's heard my story probably 100 times, but I got into the salon industry and realized that beauty salons are kind of cash cows. And I hadn't realized that early on, or I would have made different choices when I was like right out of high school, but I didn't. So I was 40 before I got into the salon industry. And I ended up, over the next 25 years, I ended up retiring with 5 beauty salons. And the model that I chose was the booth rent model. And booth, it's an independent contractor, but those of us in the industry, we call it booth rental, which is an old term, but we still hang on to that term. And what it means is all the girls that get licensed, guys and gals that get licensed through the state of Ohio, they can go out and simply rent a station or rent a booth. They're not renting the entire salon. They're just renting their little station. And then they pay rent to the owner. But the owner, because they're independent contractors, the owner has no control over them. The owner has no control over what products they use, what hours they work, how they dress, how they talk to their clients. They are totally independent. So for those of you that are in the Columbus, Ohio area, we have what's called oh gosh, what is the big salon suites now? Mine was salon lofts. We have the big salon lofts all around. And that is probably the most famous model of booth rent because they get an entire room. They're renting that room and they can lock the door when they go home at night. And then so it's kind of like their own little mini salon inside a bigger salon. And so my model was very similar, and mine was called Salon Suites. And so I would buy, because again, I wanted to get into the real estate. See, that was my goal. So I would buy in an old town of some of these little cities. Like I would go into the downtown. For those of you that are Columbus, Ohio, you'll get this. I would go into the downtown area of like Canal Winchester, downtown in Pickerington, downtown Westerville, downtown German Village. I would go into an area where most of you can understand this, where the houses have become commercialized. You know, you go to the little center of these little cities, and the houses that are on their main street are now bookstores and coffee shops and microbreweries. And so I would buy there because I could afford that. I couldn't afford to go to some big strip center and buy into, building a building at a strip center or a shopping center, because heck, just getting the the utilities to your empty lot was $50,000. And so I would just simply buy a house that is in the downtown area, already commercial in these little cities. I could, at the time, I could still buy a pretty decent sized house for $150,000, $200,000. And then it was already commercial. And so all I had to do was change the use to a beauty salon, change it into a retail use, and I could open a beauty salon there. So I did it not once, but 5 times in 5 areas all around Central Ohio. And I then let my staff buy me real estate. Just like when you're buying and holding a house and you let your renters buy you the house, I would buy these buildings and I would spend the money up front to change them into retail use for beauty salon use. And then I would simply just let the clock run, just let time take its course. And 20 years later, I would go get a traditional 20-year note. I wasn't doing any kind of creative financing. I would just put 20% down and borrow the rest and on a 20-year note, and let my staff make their rent payments to me. And I, in turn, then would pay the utilities and the mortgage and the taxes and the insurance. And 20 years later, I had 5 paid for commercial buildings, and that became my retirement. And so that was the plan at age 40. So I thought at age 40, I was never going to get to retire. I hadn't put any zero. I put zero back for retirement by the time I was in my early 40s. My mom had, one of those talks with me, and she said, you better get on with it. And I'm thinking, what? I'm already working 2 jobs. What, you want me to work 3? What do you mean get on with it? And she said, you know what? 20 years, you haven't saved a penny. If you don't save a penny the next 20, she goes, how are you ever going to retire? And she was correct. And that was the wake-up call that I needed. And so that's why I made the decision to get into the salon industry. And that's why I knew I had to buy the real estate and not just run a salon, not just rent a storefront somewhere and pay $2,000 a month for some storefront rental. And at the end of 20 years, I have a shoebox full of rent receipts. I decided that I needed to buy the building. So that's my lesson. And so that's my aha moment. And my tip to everybody is just start buying. Get that. It doesn't matter. We hear, and we're going to talk to Jonathan all about funding today, but it doesn't matter how you fund it at the end of the day. 20 years from now, it won't matter. And we get all hung up on interest rates, and we get hung up on the terms, and we get hung up on all that stuff. But all of that is fixable. You can always refinance down the road, depending on what you sign into at the beginning. There's all kinds of ways that you can handle the financing of it. But 100% of the time, 20 years from now, you will be glad that you purchased something 20 years ago. Am I right? Okay. So the lesson for everybody today is, however you decide to fund it, just take the next step and start buying some real estate. Now, keep it within your means. I don't want you to get outside your means. I don't want you to fund something and get so upside down that you end up taking a loss just to get rid of it because, you're sinking. So you have to be smart about it, and you have to work the numbers and make sure that you're spending the right amount up front to buy that property, whatever it is, whether it's single families, multifamilies, whether you're going to use it for long-term, short-term, midterm. And we talk about all those things. And I am very well diversified. I have commercial and I have residential. And in my residential, I have long-term, midterm, and short-term. And I always calculate my numbers on residential long-term, because that's kind of my exit strategy. And here's why. Everyone has to have a place to live. Everyone has to have a place to live. And so long-term residential rentals is always your go-to if all else fails. Now, there's lots of other things you can do with property. I can buy something and say, I'm going to put this on Airbnb and I'm going to short-term rent it, and I'm going to charge 4 times the price, and I'm going to get it. It's going to be great. And then, just like we saw back in 2020, the pandemic came through. People weren't allowed to travel. They were told only necessary, like hospital workers or whatever was allowed to travel. And so all of that short-term rental stuff just kind of came to a screeching halt. Well, everybody still had to have a place to live, right? Even if people weren't vacationing. So I always use the long-term residential as my exit strategy if I have to back out of the short-term or midterm or something for whatever reason. For whatever reason, maybe I just don't want to clean houses, every 3 days, and I decide that that's not for me anymore because I want to retire or whatever. So anyway, that's my spiel. I want to introduce to us today Jonathan, and I'm going to ask Jonathan to tell us a little bit about his backstory and how he managed to get to where he is today. And then I'm going to ask him to weave in his conversation all about funding. And Jonathan, do you need to share your screen at any time?
Yeah, I put together a few slides to share with the group.
All right, then you will get a little note, something about being a co-host, and I'm going to make you a co-host. And then the only thing that gives you the same power as me so that you can share your screen and move around in the call. And the only thing I ask is if for any reason my Wi-Fi bumps me out, would you let me back in, Jonathan?
No, I'm taking over.
It's all good. Jonathan, over to you.
Well, awesome. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Kathy, for inviting me to this session and providing me a platform to share my background and knowledge with the group. For those of you guys who haven't met me before, my name is Jonathan Robinson. I'm zooming in from Columbus, Ohio. And that's also the market in which I have chosen to invest in real estate. Um, my backstory, I've tried a few different investment strategies, but similar to a lot of people, started off with house hacking. So purchased a duplex, moved in on one side and rented out the other. I am currently living in my second house hack. And so, that first property was kind of my tuition, showed me what I liked, what I didn't like, and also opened my eyes to a lot of the opportunity and possibilities that can be achieved through real estate. Then went ahead and got into my second house hack, which is also a duplex. And now I am renovating and preparing to move into my third one as well. But that's really what I've been doing on the personal side of my real estate investing. But I've also, established an LLC and have been fixing and flipping properties and acquiring rentals as well. And that's really what I'm going to focus on today for my discussion on the funding portion of all the great topics that Kathy and her group explore. And then just to get a little pulse check on the experience level here on this call. Ronan, I heard that, you're pretty much investing full time. You're a contractor as well. But Christy, Natalie, Alina, Adrian, Q, where are you guys at in your journeys? Are you still, looking for your first properties? Have you done some deals? I'd love to just get a little idea of who's in the room today.
Yes, and please feel free to unmute and jump in. Christy, would you like to share where you are in your investing journey?
Um, on hold for just a minute, right now. But I have been in real estate like 20 years, maybe 25 years. But I'm newer to the investing side of it. So I am still learning all those types of things. So I am, but yeah, my journey is on hold for another few minutes.
No problem.
But she's taken it all in, and she's worked in the industry as well. Mm-hmm. So Christy knows her way around finding the deals, and she understands the whole, funding process and the whole fixing and flipping and all of that. She just hasn't pulled the trigger herself. Christy, please forgive me if you didn't want me to share, but she is actually taking care of her grandmother. Is that correct?
Fine. Yes, yeah. Yes, I am.
And so she's kind of focused on that for now, which is why she's not out there rolling up her sleeves with the paintbrush.
Yes.
And we heard from Ronan, not only is he in the industry, but he also has a construction company. Now, Ronan, do you personally own some rental properties yet? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. So I have not got into it too much on the personal side. Basically, I partnered up with a good friend of mine that's been doing it a lot longer than I have. And what we do is we work with, they're actually real estate agents that have gotten into house flipping and, that realm. And so what we do is we just manage all the projects for them. So I'm very familiar with the flipping side of things, but I have not gotten into it much on the personal side. So that's kind of why I'm tuning in today, just to learn more and kind of soak it all in.
Perfect. Perfect. Natalie, how about you? Where are you in your investing journey?
Hi there. So I am currently full-time in corporate America. My fiance is very experienced in this industry, so I feel like through him, I've gotten a lot of experience in renovating, fixing up, demolition, all that fun stuff. And now I'm setting my sights on my own investment, so I'm ramping up to that. So I'm using this time to soak up as much knowledge as I can from industry experts.
Perfect. Thank you for being with us. Yes. Yes. Alina, how about you? You're already unmuted. Where are you in your investing journey?
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'd say I'm at the very beginning. Like Christy, I'm taking care of my mother right now. So our family situation has changed a bit, and we actually have 5 adults in the house. So I'm interested in looking for kind of a multi-family living situation and doing something with the properties that we already have. So I just want to learn more about how to do that in a smart way.
Okay. Now, when you say the properties that you already have, do you have some rentals already?
No, not rentals, just homes that we were or are living in.
Okay.
So I just want to, maybe consider starting into renting the houses while we move into a different place, that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
And, I wouldn't be adverse to making some money in real estate if I can figure out the process.
Yeah, that's a great plan, by the way, is if you're gonna upsize or downsize or whatever, house hack in the future, take care of parents, whatever your goals are, instead of selling something that you either have paid off or it has a very low interest rate from years gone by, oftentimes those are the best cash flowing properties that you already have. So yes, that's a good plan, Alina. That's
Thanks.
actually a good plan.
My parents actually did that a long, long time ago, but they had such a bad experience too. So I kind of always have that in the back of my mind, dealing with renters. So I just want to get smarter about it.
Well, today we're talking about funding as our overarching topic today. But when we get to the filling, you're definitely going to want to tune in the month that we talk about filling. That's when we're doing the buy and holds. And I have that's my sweet spot. That's my superpower. And I have all kinds of tips and tricks. So be sure you mark the third month of every month, or third Monday of every month, because next month we're going to be talking, and I don't know if I can pace it out here, but next month is September. And so we're going to be talking about fixing. And then October will be flipping, and November is going to be the filling. So definitely tune in. But in November, I'll be talking and giving you all my tips and tricks about being a landlord. And it really is, it's really not scary if you do it with systems and software. Ronan, did you have a question?
Was there a way that we could tune in to the Find episode?
Yes. All of those are available. If you go to kathybinner.com, that's my website, and simply scroll through the tabs until you come to the real estate tab, and there's going to be a button there for all the replays.
Awesome.
Yes, for several years worth of replays. Adrian, how about you? Where are you in your real estate journey as far as the 6 F's of real estate investing? Would you like to unmute and share with Jonathan?
Yes, I've been in real estate for 4 years now, just managing one property, and hopefully my goal, next year, get another property, hopefully multifamily.
Good choice. That's a great choice. Yeah. So Adrian has one so far, Jonathan. And he's had it, he's in his fourth year. And he's now and I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here because I know Adrian personally. Is my guess is that he will probably leverage the equity out of his current property to purchase additional real estate. And that's exactly what I did with the commercial properties in the salon industry. Is I would simply leverage the equity that I had in the first building to buy the second one, and then I would leverage that to buy the third, and I just continued till I had five. So anyway, that's a good strategy. Q, how about you? Where are you in your journey? Or I don't know if it's a he or a she. Q up, I like that. Q up said, I'm stopping the bleeding due to being overzealous and getting hit by rate rising and COVID restrictions. Now, when you say you're stopping the bleeding, you're not getting out, are you? Can you unmute and share with us? No, typed in there. No, not getting out. Okay. Well, hang in there. Again, I don't know when you say that you're stopping the bleeding. If you're just on hold, like Christy is on hold for a minute, or whether you had to sell something. I get that. Again, you don't want to get in and get upside down. I understand that completely. And even though I have 28 doors, I have from time to time, I put all of mine out on a spreadsheet. Back in corporate America, Natalie, you'll get this. You're in corporate. Back in corporate America, I hated doing reports and spreadsheets, and I hated it. But there's a very valuable process there that sometimes you cannot see the forest for the trees. And when you put it down onto a spreadsheet or into a report where you're looking at certain factors, sometimes it jumps off the page at you as to what is not profitable. And so doing those reports and spreadsheets are so important. And so from time to time, I do it on purpose, and I pick my least profitable property, and I really get serious about it and say, do I need to sell this one to get something more profitable, or is this one still within my parameters of profitability? And so sometimes it's okay to sell something. So don't feel bad if you think, oh, I struggled to get into one and now I've sold it. Now I'm back out of the business again. That's okay if you got in over your head, and that's just a smart move. To maybe sell something that you can kind of clear the finances and start over. And I get that. And I've sold a couple because they weren't a good buy. I just got a little overzealous, just like you, and bought a couple of things that I probably shouldn't have. They were too big of a project for me to finish. So anyway, that's okay. Jonathan, does that help give you an idea of who your audience is today?
Absolutely. And, I appreciate everybody taking the time to share where they're at in their journey. But for today, the type of financing that I'm going to be focusing on is financing for value add or renovation projects. And why I felt like that was appropriate was because, Kathy let me know that a lot of you all were going to be, more so at the beginning stages of your investing journey. And as someone who's relatively still newer in the game, getting access to capital, understanding what those options are was one of my main barriers to taking action. And especially when hearing about, oh, you've got to have 25% down, and et cetera, to be able to get a property. I said, there has to be another way. There has to be a way for me to get in some of these deals without having to have saved up that much money. And so if you give me a second, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And the topic of today is going to be funding your value add renovation projects with hard money. And so let me this.
Now, once you share, Jonathan, and you may have this already in your presentation, but some of our listeners may not know exactly what hard money means.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to run through all the basics today. And it's really going to be from the borrower's perspective. So, when I was going and understanding what hard money is and the ins and outs, this is some of the information that I felt like would have been helpful to me and understanding, this funding source. And another thing I would say, about value add projects and why my investment strategy has focused on that. I've not purchased anything turnkey, even my own house hacks that I've purchased using conventional 3 to 5% homeowner financing. I've put a little bit of work into all those properties to increase the value. And so, this is specifically on value add renovation projects if you're doing this as a business. So, thinking about working with an LLC and your goal is to flip a property or to take that, buy a property, put some money into it to fix it up, and then to take that to another bank, refinance, and hold it long term. So let's go ahead and dive in. So, the presentation highlights, one of the key funding sources for value add real estate projects, and that's hard money. And the purpose of this is to really help inform you guys and increase your confidence in navigating this funding source. And so, on our agenda, we're going to cover 4 topics. What is hard money? Kind of like the 101 and some key characteristics that you all should be aware of. The qualifications, so like how do you and your project set you up to be able to get access to this funding? How you can go out and start to evaluate hard money lenders and questions you should consider asking or looking on their website to be able to figure out if they're going to be a good partner for you, and also getting your deal closed quickly. And so from a borrower, what are things that I have done to be able to set myself up for success and leverage this funding source? Cool. So, what is a hard money lender? Some of you guys may have gotten exposure to some hard money lenders. I see that Kathy has had some on here in the past as speakers for funding. But essentially, guys, a hard money lender is a private lender. And when I say private lender, we're talking about like non-bank entities. So these are businesses that they're in business for the sole purpose of lending money for real estate projects. And so they provide short-term loans secured by real estate or the asset itself that you are bringing to them for funding. And these loans are typically used by investors who need quick access to capital to renovate properties. And so, you guys may have seen in the news or heard just about in general in the industry, people purchasing properties for cash. And so when people say, hey, I'm a cash buyer or I bought this cash, there's a number of things that mean like they used cash. And one of them is hard money because it's seen as good as cash. So people are usually using their own capital. Which, like I mentioned earlier, the constraint is you have to build up that nest egg to be able to fund the entire project. They have access to something like a line of credit or equity, like Kathy was mentioning with her other properties, or they understand how to work with a certain type of private lenders, such as hard money lenders, who are collateral based or look at the asset itself as one of the main things to qualify you for those monies. And so what are some key things that differentiate hard money lenders from other type of lending sources or capital sources? The first and foremost thing is they are collateral based. And what that means is that they are primarily being secured by the value of the property, not only in its current condition when you're purchasing it, but also the future value of that property based on what you are going to do with it. And then secondary, they're looking at yourself as the borrower in things such as your credit worthiness and your financials. And these are really to qualify you to work with them, because some lenders may have these criteria where we need people to have, X credit score or be able to show, X number of reserves. But each hard money lender is different. And depending on how high the bar is that they're asking borrowers to meet, will determine how much leverage or how much capital they're going to be willing to give you for the deal. But the thing to remember is, first and foremost, they're looking at the deal first, then they're looking at the borrower. Compare that to conventional financing.
Mhm.
They're looking at the borrower first to pre-qualify you. Then they're looking at the property to see if it meets their lending criteria. So that's one thing to remember. The second is short term. These loans are short term. Think, 6 to 24 months, depending on the size and the scale of your project, whether it's a renovation, all the way up to new construction and development projects. That's why there's such a big range for how long different types of hard money lenders are willing to lend their money. And then also, these loans can be used to purchase properties quickly as well. So say, an opportunity pops up and somebody who traditionally uses all their money to purchase properties, they may opt to use hard money because it will allow them to hop on an opportunity now versus waiting and putting all of their money into a deal to be able to purchase it.
Jonathan, I have a quick question. If I find a great deal and I don't have the cash and I want to use hard money, and I know it's all about building relationships, and the more I find a hard money lender that I work with on a regular basis, it's going to go faster. But for somebody that's brand new, that's not done this before, what kind of a turnaround time might there be? And I know they're all a little different, but we hear people traditionally closing through banks, and sometimes it's a couple of months for them to get to the closing table. What kind of a turnaround time could it be for a hard money lender?
Absolutely, that's a great question. But I've seen as quickly as 48 hours that hard money lenders can close on a deal. But as a newbie, I would give yourself a minimum of 21 days until you've closed a loan. And then you understand, with that specific lender, what are all the steps in their process to be able to get it clear to close? What are all of the requirements they're going to ask of you as a borrower to be able to fully underwrite that deal? And truly, what are the rate limiting steps in the process that will determine how fast or how slow your loan progresses? And that's something that I'm going to dive into more.
Good. Thank
But
you.
the key thing that I would want you guys to remember, or the characteristic, is that it's faster than traditional financing. And it's because they're primarily looking at the asset versus the borrower. And hard money lenders make their money, or their value proposition to borrowers, is that they can move faster than other sources of capital. The other characteristic is cost. And so these are high interest rates loans, think, 8 to 15% on the money. And there's also going to be additional fees at origination, usually, 1 to 3% of whatever the loan cost is. So say, you're getting a loan for $200,000, and that hard money lender is going to charge you 2 points on origination. You know, that's one way that they make their money at the start of the project. That means that you'd be paying $4,000 or 2% of 200,000 right at closing. And really, this is all because of the risk associated in the project, in that they are committing a larger loan to a property than what it is currently worth, right? So we think about at the start of a deal, the property is worth X. And in order to get it to Y, you're going to have to invest Z into it. So their offer, say you're purchasing it for 100, you've got to put 50 into it, and it's going to be worth 200. You know, say the hard money lender gives you a loan for 135,000. Out the gate, they have committed capital to the deal that's greater than what the property is currently worth. But every single day that you invest money into that property and renovations get done, the value eventually surpasses what they have invested and plus some. And so that's truly what protects them. But because there's a lot of third-party risk in these transactions, you know, hiring out work to contractors, what happens in the market, say interest rates go up or the lending environment changes, there's a lot of things in the market that could negatively impact a deal. And because there is money being invested into the property, there is a higher level of risk than just, say, a turnkey property you're purchasing and you're not doing any work to it. You know, I already touched on this. The other characteristic is speed and flexibility. But, you know, I touched on the speed part. It's faster than traditional financing, but the flexibility part comes in that different hard money lenders have different programs or different types of hard money loans they might be able to offer you. And each hard money lender might have different products as well. And so for me as a borrower, I may choose to use one lender for projects that are more cosmetic in nature and I'm not doing a lot to them, or my exit might be different. And I might choose another lender where I'm doing a very large renovation, or, you know, it's in a certain location, like out in a rural market, because of the terms that I know that they're going to offer me. And so based on the type of deal or how quickly you need to move or how much leverage you need on the deal, you may opt to work with a different hard money lender. And then the last thing is the risk. You know, because these loans are secured by the asset itself, the lender has the right to foreclose on you to recover their investment if you do not perform. So
Questions?
how do you
Any questions from anyone so far?
feel free, guys, to ask questions throughout or at the end?
Q says
Each
go
is
ahead.
different, but are balloon payments common with hard money lenders? Absolutely. Remember, one of the key characteristics is the timeline. And for a hard money lender and anybody who's investing, right, our goal is to increase our ROI or our speed of capital, because the faster that we or they get their principal and their return back faster, now that's an opportunity for them to then throw it into another deal and to snowball it bigger and bigger. And so hard money lenders will put a timeline on your project to give you incentive to finish. And if you need to go past that timeline, then you have to then pay additional fees to extend the loan term. And so understanding not only what the terms of the hard money loan are, but how long you need to be in that project, as well as how long that hard money lender is going to give you to do that project, is essential. Ronan, what's up?
What kind of time frames do they usually give?
So for me, on average, they've been giving 12 months, which I think is important. depending on what your exit strategy is. When thinking about the hard money lenders that I work with, the shortest one that I know that one hard money lender, excuse me, the longest time that one hard money lender will provide is 6 months. Like all their loans are 6 months. And so what does that tell you? It says that they only want to work on projects that have shorter timelines compared to, other lenders who may go 12 plus. That means that they're okay with bigger renovations that may need to go through things like extensive permitting or very large renovations, where you're, fully gutting a house or, doing an addition, something very extreme. And
Now,
so I would shoot for 12 months, because it gives you flexibility on, say, hey, you finish your project and it does not sell. Well, maybe an option B in your exit strategy is to turn that property into a rental. And for me personally, that is a price point that I like to stay at, is buying properties that I can either sell and make a profit or even keep and hold as a long-term rental too. So oftentimes I'm underwriting deals both ways before I get into a deal.
Jonathan, that's a good point. And my little tip is if you're working with a contractor or a general contractor, is never give them the real deadline date. If you've got 12 months and you have to do something at the end of 12 months, I tell my contractors that I have like 9 months. And that way, because things happen that they have no control over, things happen that I have no control over, and it just gives you a buffer. So that's just a little tip that I use. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, one of my biggest pain points, with renovations as of recently is timelines with contractors. And things happen, I understand, but I think something that I'm going to lean towards is, being quick to pull the plug if a contractor is not working well. But then also, setting up a system where at the end of the day, if, a project is running long, being able to shift some of the risks back towards the contractor, because, it's not fair for somebody to be taking their time with my project and I'm eating the entire cost of that delay. And so that's something that I'm starting to explore, because, guys, with double-digit interest rates on these loans, it can be costing you hundreds of dollars a day and interest that you have to pay for delays. And so ultimately, I'm trying to work in collaboration and in partnership with my contractors. But at the end of the day, if somebody's not performing, I need to protect myself and then also be sure that I am setting them up for success as well at the start of the project. Having a clear plan, being clear on what bottlenecks there may be or what decisions may be made, and having open lines of communication so that you all can work well together.
Good points.
Cool. And so how do you guys qualify for a hard money loan? Well, the first thing, like I mentioned, is that it's collateral based. And so the property's value is important. And the lender will oftentimes do a full appraisal on the property or something that's called a broker's price opinion. And that's really, them internally looking at the house and comparable sales for their property to see what its future value is going to be based on your plan. And so with these appraisals, that is one thing that can determine how fast the hard money lender can close. Remember, I said some that can close as quickly as 48 hours. Well, those ones, they're not ordering full appraisals because now they're at the mercy of a third party who has to go out to the property, write up the report, send it back to the hard money lender underwrite it, etc. Right? So at least 21 days, 14 to 21 days with a hard money lender who needs to order a full appraisal. But if a hard money lender says they do BPOs or brokers price opinions, that means they are internally doing that valuation and they can move a lot faster than other hard money lenders. Ronan, what's good?
So, Jonathan, your lenders, are they all local to you? Like, is it easy to work with them? You stop in an office, or how are you, like, how did you find the lenders that you work with?
Very good question. So, a lot of hard money lenders have multiple territories that they lend in. In any territory that they lend in, they more than likely will have a representative who is in that market or close by. Um, for me, I think that, ones that have a very active presence in a market are some of the best ones to work with because they have a more intimate understanding of that market and what's going on. But then also, you can oftentimes connect with them and meet them at different events, such as networking events for real estate investors. I'd highly recommend that you guys get recommendations from other investors on who they recommend for hard money, because not all hard money lenders are the same. And so, just take a pulse check from your network on who people are using, what they like about them, and if they would recommend them to you. Just like with anything, it's a big investment to commit to getting a loan from a hard money lender. And so making sure that it's a good match is important. And on my next slide, I'm actually going to dive into some questions that you can ask to vet them and make sure that it is a good fit.
Jonathan, can I give a
so
little plug here for just a second? We have a big
Absolutely.
coin meetup tomorrow night, and it's their expo. So for those of you that need to put together a team, there's going to be over 30 vendors at expo tables, foods provided. There's a free bar for the first couple of hours, and you're welcome to come. Let me actually get the location here off of my calendar. They changed locations here not too long ago. They are at the Ohio Brewing Company at 421 East 2nd Avenue in Columbus tomorrow night, starting at 5 o'clock. And there's going to be some hard money lenders there at their own table. And so once Jonathan gives you these questions to vet them with, you can maybe take a screen print of those questions and take them with you and kind of immerse yourself in that environment. But there's going to be contractors there. There's going to be hard money lenders there. There's going to be coaches there. So keep your wallet in your back pocket because everybody's going to want a piece of you. That's the whole purpose of being there at the expo. They're all going to want you to buy their products and services. But it's a great place for you to take a look at what's available and see what's going on in the industry. And you get to meet tons of other folks that are just like you in the same spot you're in. So I'll just toss that out there. It's tomorrow night, 5 o'clock. Jonathan.
Absolutely. Number 2 is your exit strategy. Lenders want to know how you plan to repay the loan. And so whether that's selling the property or refinancing it and keeping it, but they're usually going to require a short narrative about what your plan is and how you're going to execute on that plan. Third is skin in the game. Expect to contribute 10 to 15% of the total project cost to the deal. You're not going to find a hard money lender who's going to fund 100% of your purchase and 100% of your renovation. They're usually going to fund the renovation portion completely because they want to ensure that the funds are there for you to finish the project. But where you're going to have to bring that skin in the game is at closing. And so some may give you less leverage, right? And not give you as big as a loan, depending on a few things, such as your experience level, the numbers on the deal, like say it's a skinny deal, the location. So say it's in a rural area versus a urban or suburban environment where there's more sales comps and data points that are giving them confidence in the value of the property. Remember that appraisal, guys. and also the condition of the property. So, say it's, a level, like it's a final boss property, it's a full blown fire burn property, or something where you're completely gutting in and doing an addition. Well, there's a lot more risk associated with those, so the higher the renovation budget, the more chances there are for something to go wrong. And then lastly is the borrower's profile. So having a track record, while it's not prohibitive, it can impact what types of hard money lenders you work with. And so there are some hard money lenders that will not work with people who do not own a property already or investment property. But then there are some that do. And there's different tiers of lenders. And so look at it from their perspective. The more deals that you've done, or the more you've been able to demonstrate your ability to execute on your strategies, the more leniency or confidence they're going to have in your ability to return their capital. And so while all of these things are qualification criteria, if you perceive that you're going to have a challenge in one of them, that doesn't exclude you from moving forward. It's just about anticipating what those challenges might be. For example, hey, I'm in a market where it's primarily rural and there aren't a lot of sales comps. Well, you may need to consider being more picky about the properties that you're selecting to flip in order to, present a compelling story to a hard money lender around why they should fund it. Or you might need to look at a different market. Exit strategy. You got to be able to run the numbers on the front side and the back side to give them confidence that you have an understanding of what you're doing. And as a newbie, when I first started, this was one of the things that really helped move the needle for me to get funding. Was I was very clear and was able to outline a clear plan of attack on what I was going to do, why I was going to do it, and how I was going to manage that. That set me up for success. Skin in the game, even if you don't have, that 10 to 15% of total project cost, while this isn't the focus of this presentation, you might be able to partner up with somebody in a formal or informal way for them to bring that funding to your deal. And the same thing with borrower profile. If you don't personally have any investment properties, you can get creative in how you could potentially partner up with another experienced investor and add value to them. Perhaps it's you find the deal and then you take it down together for a different equity split, right? With the more experienced person getting the bulk of it and you just getting a small portion of it to be able to build up your track record. And so, all of these things are going to be important as they evaluate you and your deal, but none of them are an end all be all. And there's things that you can do to get around barriers in the process.
Jonathan, I want to ask a question about the exit strategy portion. Early on, of course, I hadn't saved any money by the time I was in my 40s, which is why my mom had that chat with me that I needed to get on with it. And so I didn't at the time have an exit strategy. If I would have used a hard money lender, I didn't have the credit or the income or any way to refinance a property so that I could hold it. Now, today, that is not a barrier because we have all kinds of other types of loans that are possible for folks to get that refinancing if they're trying to build a portfolio of buy and holds of rentals that they want to keep. Are you going to touch on that? Or I at least want to say to the group that there are options there. Don't let the fact that maybe you don't have a good credit score, you don't have the income, don't let that stop you from using refinancing as an exit strategy, because there are other loan options out there for those folks. Are you going to touch on any of that, Jonathan, or no? I don't want to step on your toes.
No problem. I don't have that in this presentation, but say, you wanted to bring me back in the future, we could focus on a presentation on refinancing and what goes into that.
Mhm.
I'm refinancing a property this week that I had a hard money loan on to renovate and turn into a rental. And so, just like there's an art and a science to getting hard money, there's an art and a science to refinancing a property too. But this presentation specifically focuses on value add. So like getting into the project.
Okay, so then what I want to say then to the group is that there are other loan products out there that focus strictly on the collateral, not on you as the borrower for the refinancing piece. So just know there are options. Don't think that, well, I have to always just flip it and sell it because there's no way I could refinance it in 12 months. There is ways that you can refinance in 12 months. So just so you know, there are products out there.
Absolutely. Cool. Next, we're going to hop into some potential questions to ask hard money lenders. And, why I think this is important is because by researching these lenders, understanding what their requirements are, and what it's going to take to work with them, that's going to help you understand, hey, where might be these potential pitfalls or hurdles that I might face in my process to be able to access funding. And so you can be proactive in game planning around how you're going to navigate them or what you're going to do to improve your profile to be able to work with these lenders. And so I'm not going to read through all of these because of time. But these are all different things that you all should be considering: experience and track record. Not only for them as a lender, like, are they currently working in their market or are they brand new to the market, right? They may be less aggressive and give you less leverage if they are new to working in your market. Evaluation process, that's, around, hey, what is required of me to get a deal ready for you guys to evaluate, or what information do you need? Loan terms. Like I was talking about earlier, hard money lenders are high cost, but some are higher cost than others. Funding requirements and timelines. What information do you need about the deal itself to be able to start? And then once, they get all that information, how quickly can they close? Loan to value, that's really about, hey, what is the max amount of loan that they are willing to provide a borrower to fund a deal. So say, a house is worth 100,000, they typically cap out at 75% loan to value, right? So 75% of 100,000, the max loan a hard money lender would be willing to give out is 75,000. Anything above that, the borrower would be responsible for bringing to the table. Similar to loan terms, what fees do they have? It might be for an appraisal, it might be underwriting fees or junk fees, right? And then what's important here is their draw process. How do you get the money to pay your contractor for the work? Some require paid invoices to reimburse borrowers, and some just order an inspection to see that the work is complete, and then they will release the money to the borrower to be able to pay the contractor. And so this is important because if they require paid invoices, that means that they are going to put the burden on you to pay the contractor first, and then you will be reimbursed for that money. So additional capital requirements that you're going to need to work with this lender. Default scenario, if something goes wrong in your deal, having open lines of communications with the lender about how do you handle this or what would the process be. Collateral requirements, not only do they underwrite the property, but they may require you to have some reserves. They want to make sure you're not giving them your last penny to get into this deal. And then a proof of funds letter. You can actually sometimes get pre-qualified to work with these hard money lenders. And then just like how when a homeowner goes to purchase a property, you can provide a proof of funds letter from a hard money lender to be able to submit cash offers for properties on the market through a real estate agent. And so, why is all this important? It's not only to make sure that you will be able to work with these hard money lenders, but to be able to compare their terms and select the right lender for the right deal. Remember earlier, I said, hey, I use, a different hard money lender if I really need to close quickly because it's a competitive deal. And then I use a different hard money lender if I know it's going to be, a humongous renovation and I'm going to need a large loan amount too. And so here are just some questions for you to consider as you are researching hard money lenders. And a lot of this information can be found on their websites too, for you to begin to evaluate and compare them.
You had a question, Jonathan. Do they work with Canadians that are looking to do deals in the States?
Absolutely. Foreign nationals, I think that would be how would you customize this list for yourself? I think the first thing you would need to ask is, hey, do you work with foreign nationals? And in order to work for a foreign national, somebody who's outside of the US or who's not a United States citizen, what information would you need from me to be able to, work with you? It might mean that you have an LLC that's in the US, right? It might mean that because you are not local, you might get less leverage or or more expensive deal terms because they see that as a higher risk. I would say that is a key question that you'd want to ask is, do you work with foreign nationals, and how may my loan terms change because I am a foreign national?
Hugh, thank you for that question.
Cool. And then last one is my advice to you for getting your deal closed quickly. Like I mentioned earlier, some hard money lenders can truly close as quickly as 48 hours, but that is contingent on the borrower providing all of the information that is required of them for the hard money lender to process it. And what I like to do is I like to put all this stuff in a Google Drive and then just send that Google Drive to my lender so that they have it all in one place. And then we're not going back and forth looking for stuff. So what are they going to need? They're going to need the purchase contract and closing information. And so not only the actual contract, so they can verify that, hey, you are actually in contract on this property, but who are you going to be closing with? Title and escrow. LLC documents. When you're first getting started, they're going to want your operating agreement and your EIN. A lot of hard money lenders will not lend to individuals, so the loan will not be in your name. It will actually be for your entity or your business, right? Third is scope of work and deal narrative. So,
Jonathan, can I jump in real quick?
yeah.
For those that are listening, brand new folks, it is not hard to create an LLC and add an operating agreement. I can help you with that. Jonathan can help you with that if you have some specific questions. It's just, you can do it online, especially here in Ohio. It may be different everywhere, but in Ohio, you can just tap in online and create your LLC. And again, you can overthink it. There's all kinds of tips and tricks on, oh, you should have an LLC in a certain state or whatever. So it depends on what you need it to do at the end of the day. If you're going to invest in several different states, it might make a difference in what state your LLC is in. But if you're going to invest just in the state that you live in, I would just recommend to create your LLC in that state. But again, we can help you with that, but don't get stuck there. That's not a real difficult thing to create. Am I correct, Jonathan?
Absolutely. So going back to the third criteria or the third requirement, hard money lender scope of work, SOW template. So each hard money lender is going to have a template where line by different component of a renovation, they're going to ask you, what are you doing and how much you need, right? So it's going to be like roof, gutters, soffit, fascia, so you're going to have an understanding of what those components are and work collaboratively with your contractor to make sure that you all are on the same page around what that line by line breakdown is and a description of what work is going to be done. Why this is important is because that's what the hard money lender is going to use to reimburse you or to pay you the construction funds as work is completed, and also so that you have an common understanding with your contractor around expectations and what work is going to be done as well, in addition to any other documents that you use to finalize that agreement. And then also, that narrative or description of your exit strategy. It could even just be a few paragraphs around, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how much you're going to be putting in, what the property is going to be worth, and some comparable sales to support that. But just something to let them know what your plan is. Borrower financials. Some may not require this at all, but some do, in different ways that you can demonstrate liquidity. And this is something you could also ask on your interview template, is how you can, but you can use bank statements, you can show retirement accounts, and potentially even lines of credit if you have access to them. For those of you all who own other types of different properties. And then lastly is going to be insurance quote. All lenders are going to require you to have vacant property insurance. And so just about every single hard money lender has a relationship with a insurance broker who can help facilitate that quote, or you can come prepared with a representative that you already know and get a quote through them to compare to the hard money lender as well. But this is typically the 5 categories of information that they're going to need. And I put it all in one Google Drive and send it off to them. And that's what positions me to get my deals done quickly, because everything is in one place. How did I come up with this list? Well, it started, with my interview process. And after going through and working with a few different hard money lenders, I now understand, no matter who I'm working with, this is pretty much the set of documents I'm going to need to be able to give them in order to get my deal done. That's it, y'all.
That is amazing. All concise, all in one place. Again, we've heard about the BRRRR strategy where you can buy some real estate and then you rehab it, refinance it, repeat, and you can just keep building your portfolio that way. You do have to have an exit strategy where you can basically refinance that deal once it's rehabbed to pay off that hard money lender. So just know, if your goal is to build a portfolio of rental properties, that there are tons of options for you to refinance that. Don't let that be a stopper for you. Are there any questions from anyone on the call? I know some folks had to jump off. Natalie had another presentation she had to go to. Christy had to go take care of her grandma. The grandmother's nurse, I think, came, and she had to go take care of her. So a couple of the gals had to jump off. Are there any questions from anyone that's still on the call?
I have one.
Q says, okay, yeah, we're gonna, let me answer Q real quick. Q says, can you share a few other options? Q, are you talking about the refinance options? Is that what you're referring to? If so, my favorite one, and Jonathan, tell me if I've got the acronym wrong, a DSCR loan. And a DSCR loan is strictly a company. Again, it's usually a private money lender, but it's usually a larger conglomerate, and they're doing DSCR loans, which means they're just going to use the property itself as the collateral. They usually don't even ask you for a credit score or your income, because they really don't care. They just want to know, is this property really going to bring in the rents that you say it's going to bring in? And so let me just take a look here. DSCR loan. And that is, yes, there are several companies in Ohio that do those. And I am just going to say,
Debt service coverage ratio. So
that's what I was looking up. Thank you, Jonathan.
In addition to the appraised value of the property, right? Because that's how they're going to determine how big of a loan they're going to give you. And that loan either pays you back for the money that you've invested in the deal, or if you used a hard money loan, it pays off the hard money loan that you use for the purchase and the renovation, right? So there's always going to be an appraisal. That's how they manage risk. But rather than your profile as a borrower being the primary, right? Similar to a hard money loan, they're going to be looking at the rents that the property brings in. And the rent is what primarily qualifies that property for the loan. They want to make sure that the rents cover the debt service or the monthly mortgage payment. And
Now,
so
oftentimes they do require that you include the taxes and insurance and all of it, right? Because they want to make sure all of that gets paid. They don't want anything hanging out there that didn't get paid, which again puts them at more risk. So they often will require that all of that be done together, but you still can use your own insurance. You just have to submit that, at the closing. Interest rates might be a point higher than the conventional loans. They're not too much higher. They're not out of line. I mean, it's definitely doable. We've refinanced several of our properties into a DSCR because we're at retirement age now and neither of us have actual income. So that is what we're doing now, and it works really well, and the closings are rather quick as well. So that way you can pay back that hard money rather quickly if you need to at the other end. I hope that answered your question there, Q. Any other questions? Rowan, I think you had one.
You had mentioned at the start, Kathy, leveraging, current properties and putting that into another one. Are you specifically referring to like a line of credit, like a home equity line of credit? Would you guys be able to share a little bit on that?
Yeah, there are a couple of types of lines of credit. You can have a residential line of credit against a home that you are living in, a homeowner mortgage, and you can then get a line of credit. Or there are also some commercial lines of credits. Now, it depends on the lender as to what their parameters are. I like to use I'll call it a small hometown bank where they do all of their underwriting in-house. It's not a large bank where they send it out, to some board to decide, you're just an application in a stack at that point. And so, again, once you build a relationship with some of those hometown lenders where they do have their own financial board within that bank and they look at you on a case-by-case basis, you build a relationship with them over the years. And so I use Benton County National Bank here in Ohio. They have a Canal Winchester office, which is the office that I deal with. And I can simply, at this point of my investing, I can simply pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I need 20,000. I want to put down and get some hard money. I've got a deal I'm doing. I need 20,000. And they'll say, when do you want to pick up a check? Because I've done so many deals with them over the last 25 years. So, and again, I've never missed a payment, and it all goes on my reputation with them because we have a relationship. So you can start building that relationship with a lender like that, and it makes it a whole lot easier. Now, I do keep a commercial line of credit open at all times. I will take one of my paid off properties and I'll just go put a line of credit. I'll open a line of credit against it. It's like having my own little bank account sitting there. I don't pay anything unless I use it. They actually give me a checkbook with checks in it against that line of credit. And anytime I want to use that line of credit, I can just write a check. And so if I do find a deal, I don't even have to call them up and say, hey, I want 20,000. I simply get out my checkbook against my line of credit and write a $20,000 check, and it's cash. And I don't pay anything unless I use it. Is that helpful?
Is that an equity loan or is that something different?
No, it's based on your equity. It's a line of credit and they base it on the equity that you have in the property. And again, like Jonathan was explaining, a lender never wants to go over a certain loan to value ratio. So with my commercial line of credit, they'll go up to 80% at Vinton County National Bank. They'll do, for me, again, I've got an over 800 credit score because I purposely work on my credit score. So many folks, just their credit score is whatever it is. I actually work getting my credit score higher. And there's all kinds of tips and tricks to keep boosting your credit score. And that's not the nature of this call today, but if anybody wants to know those, I can help you out with that. But I have worked on getting my credit score above 800. And so they will loan up to 80% loan to value for me. Again, some will even go as high as 90% loan to value. And so let's say I have $100,000 property and I still owe 40,000. That gives me, the 60,000 in equity, but they don't want to loan more than 80,000. And so, I can maybe borrow, I could borrow 20, 30, $40,000 out of that line of credit all day long.
Are the rates on those similar to an equity loan then, or are they higher? Similar.
The commercial, if you're doing it against a commercial property and it's a commercial line of credit, they might be a point higher. But again, when you're investing in real estate, where you're making money about 5 different ways, making money on the rental income, you're making money on the appreciation, you're making money, all these, you get tax deductions. There's all kinds of ways you're making money on real estate. I don't get too concerned about a point or two of interest.
Would you recommend, yeah, thank you. Would you recommend, if you're trying to buy a property, is it better to take a loan or is it better to take out of money you would have in your 401k or something like that?
I like to use other people's money. So I don't like to, the only time that I would want to use my own money is if I had a self-directed IRA or a self-directed 401k where I could borrow the money out but my money is still earning.
So you take as much loan as possible really to keep things going.
I do. Now, again, I have a self-directed IRA and I can borrow out of my IRA, but I'm not borrowing my money and again, self-directed IRAs and 401ks is a whole different conversation than what we've had today. And we can talk about that. But when you are borrowing out of a self-directed IRA or 401k, you're not borrowing your money. You're borrowing the financial institution's money. Your money is still there earning its interest. You're borrowing their money and your money is still intact. And so in that case, I'm still using someone else's money. So it depends on whether your 401k is self-directed, where you're borrowing the financial institution's money, or whether you're physically borrowing your own funds.
Could I ask another question that's a bit off topic, if that's okay?
Sure.
So my current struggle is getting contractors and like estate auction kind of people to actually show up and do something. Do you have a list or something of people that you utilize for services like that?
I do. Inside the Happy House Hunters in my website, we do have a resource page, and the resource page lists all of the independent contractors that we have used in the past. And not only does it have a list of who we use, but it also has a list of what member actually used that contractor. So you could, if you are a part of our tribe and our membership, it's $25 a month to be a part of the membership. And if you're a part of the membership, you can actually talk to the other member who recommended that person, and you could say, give me the scoop on this person. What were the parts about this contractor that maybe you didn't like? Like we had one guy, he's amazing. I'll just give you an example. He is amazing. He does a lot of work on historic property. So if you're in a little historic area and you've got a landmarks commission and you have to get permission and permits to change the color of the building or whatever, this guy that's his sweet spot. That's his superpower, is working in those little downtown areas that have those landmarks commissions that are very limited in what you're allowed to do to the outside of a property. But he likes to work second shift. Well, sometimes that doesn't work for other contractors that you're trying to schedule in around him, because he likes to show up around 3 o'clock and then work until like 11 o'clock at night, literally second shift. That's
It's a man after my heart, honestly.
that's how he, you know, and if you know that about him, you know, and you know he's not gonna, that way you're not pacing the floor at 10 a.m. in the morning saying, where's my contractor? Why isn't he here? He's supposed to work today. Because you get to know him and you know he doesn't show up till 3. He's the only one that I let touch my historic properties, and I just know that about him. My guess is it's a little bit of what is it, hyperactivity or whatever. And so he has a tendency to, once he gets going, then he's ready to work into the night. And but he also likes to wait till the last minute on a deadline, so I never give him the real deadline because it stresses me too much. I know now, I've worked with him enough that I know if I gave him the correct deadline, he would still be done by the skin of his teeth, but he'd still be done by the deadline. But it's too stressful for me to let him cut it that close. So I always give him, you know, a week or two shorter than what the deadline actually is. I tell him that's the deadline. And then that way, when he's working right up into the midnight hour, it's okay, because I know I still have another couple weeks before my deadline is truthfully there. So that's things that you learn. And as long as you know that, and that's why we like to have this resource list, because then we can talk to the other members and we can say, you know, what little nuances do I need to know about this person? Because I like Jonathan was saying, you have to make it successful. You don't want to hire a contractor who is super, super busy and then tell him he's got 3 days to complete some great big project that the materials aren't even in yet. Because that's frustrating to everyone. And then that contractor is going to mark you off of his list instead of you marking him off of yours. And so, so yes, we do have that list. Now, for those of you that are on this call, just know no matter what state you're in, there is a real estate group. And I also have property in Florida, so I am in that group there as well. And I don't have trouble with acronyms. I just don't have a very good memory. It's called ORIA. It's the Ohio Real Estate Investors Association. It's out of Cincinnati, so it's for all of Ohio. And the local Columbus group is called COREE, COREE. And they're a member of the ORIA, which is that Ohio Real Estate Investors Association. They also have a huge, wonderful website, and their membership is also $25 a month. And they also have a list of contractors inside the COREE website as well. So there's 2 places you can get a list of contractors that have been vetted. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for today. It was amazing.
Good. Jonathan had to jump off. He had another commitment. But if you have any other questions for him, I can get those answered for you. Any other comments or questions? Thanks for the knowledge, Q says. Blessings and thanks, Kathy, Jonathan, and good questions from Rowan and Alina. Yes, absolutely. Q, thank you for being with us. Any aha moments? Rowan, did you have an aha moment today? What's the one thing that stood out to you that you didn't know that you're like, aha, good to know?
It's definitely helpful to have kind of everything laid out. I guess when I've looked at the journey of investing and really getting into this thing, it's very daunting. And so to have a little bit more of a plan, especially with the funding aspect, is very helpful. So appreciate you and Jonathan. This has been awesome, and definitely want to look into getting more involved with the community as well.
Good. Thank you so much. Again, kathybinner.com. I'm going to put that over in the chat for those of you that want to tap in. It's just kathybinner.com. You'll see it there in the chat. You can copy that or take a screen print. My name shows in my little Hollywood square here. We do a lot of stuff for free. Again, we're all going to be at the Coin Meetup tomorrow night, so we'd love to see you there if you're close to Columbus, Ohio. So I don't know where everybody's coming to us from, but if you're close to Columbus, Ohio, we'll be at the Coin, and there's going to be tons of hard money lenders there at the Coin event tomorrow night. So feel free to come and join us. Alina, did you have an aha moment? Is there something that was said today that made you go, aha, good to know?
Well, it definitely made me think about how I want to finance. I hadn't thought about anything other than a traditional loan to this point. And, you know, clearly I need to think about as we're looking for our new living situation, different ways to finance and what's the smartest way. So.
And again, it depends on who you are, what you have to offer, and what you want to do as your exit strategy. Mark and I both knew that at the end of the day, we wanted to have a long-term loan on properties that we were going to buy and hold, because doing the salons worked so well for me that when we got into single families, we said, okay, we just want the lowest interest rate, 30-year term on a note so that our renters can buy us a building for retirement. That was the goal. And so we weren't going to do a lot of big flipping and all of that. So with our skill set, we both, Mark and I both, have some aptitude in rehabbing. And so we decided to do a lot of the work ourselves. And so we didn't hire, we only hired out the big heavy stuff that we didn't want to do. Like if I need a new roof on a structure, I have a roofing company now that gives me a great price, and I couldn't figure it out for the price that I can just pay him to do it. And so I have a guy that does my roofs for me. I've got an HVAC guy. When we buy some of these older properties, as long as everything's working, I am a firm believer that you don't fix it unless it's broken. Whereas I have a girlfriend that is an investor, and she rips everything out and puts all new stuff in up front. And then she's behind the 8 ball financially for a couple of years until her equity catches up with all the money she spent. Well, I purchase a property, I make it really nice, but as long as the furnace is working, I don't go in and put a brand new furnace in until it needs a brand new furnace. So I have an HVAC guy. He is perfect at putting a Band-Aid on something and getting it through the season. He'll say, well, I got your furnace working, but you're probably going to need a new one in the next couple of years. Okay. And so I then can put some money back knowing that I'm going to have to replace that furnace in the next couple of years. So it's just a different mindset. It's a different way of thinking about these properties. But my goal is to let the tenant pay for the property. And so one of my little tips and tricks and hacks that might be helpful for those of you on this call is a lot of times you'll see a credit card offer where you get 12 to 18 months at 0% interest on a transfer offer. And so oftentimes, because again, I want to use somebody else's money, and let's say that I don't have the line of credit, or I don't have or maybe I just don't want to take it out of my savings account or my retirement account. If I have a house that needs a $5,000 furnace, I'll swipe a credit card and get the furnace installed. I'll pay for it on a credit card. Then as soon as it hits my account that it's due, I transfer it over to another credit card that has a 0% transfer. And oftentimes it's only a 3% transfer fee. Well, 3% money is like free money these days. And so I'll transfer that $5,000 balance over to that 0% at 3% transfer fee. And then I'll divide it into the 12 payments or 18 payments, whatever that free offer was. And I'll let my tenant pay for that. So now my tenant's buying their own furnace or their own new roof or whatever big ticket item it was that I needed to do maintenance. So again, and that's a great way to run up your credit score, because you're using credit, you're paying it off faithfully, and your credit score just keeps getting better and better and better. And so guess what? The better your credit score gets, the more credit cards you can get, and the more 0% offers you can have going at the same time. I now have 8 credit cards with high balances, or not balances, high credit amounts that I can borrow from. And I do all of my large rehab projects on credit cards, and I'm paying 3%, which is a lot cheaper than the hard money that you're going to borrow to rehab a house. And as a matter of fact, I have positioned myself with my credit cards and my high balances that the last house I bought it on a credit card. I paid for the house by swiping my credit card, paid basically cash for the house on a credit card, immediately transferred it and spread it out over 2 or 3 other credit cards that had 0% interest for 18 months to 24 months with a 3%. So I got basically it's a 3% loan when interest is now what, 8% loans. And so now I have a 3% loan by using my credit cards, and my renters in that unit are basically buying their own house for me. They're buying the house for me. So just a little tip, trick, and my credit score jumped like 30 points because I paid off a credit card by transferring it, by doing a transfer. Yeah, Q, you're right. That's beautiful. Q says that's beautiful. Yes, that's beautiful. Anyway, I learned that early on. I used it for the first time back in the day. And again, the necessity is usually, what makes us, invent something. And back in the day, this has been several years ago, my mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and we knew that, that wasn't going to have a happy ending. And so my daughter decided to step up her wedding that I had a year to plan for. But now my daughter immediately stepped up her wedding because she wanted to make sure grandma could come to her wedding. And I did not have the cash to pay for this wedding that I had already committed to for my daughter. So what I did is I put the entire wedding on a matter of fact, I just handed her my credit card at the time. And I said, here, use this for everything that you need for your wedding. And as soon as the wedding was, because we did the wedding like within 30 days. And as soon as the wedding was over, all those bills hit for the dress and the venue and the flowers. And, so I had this huge balance on this credit card. And then I immediately transferred it with a 3% transfer fee over to a 0% credit card offer for 18 months. And I was planning on paying all of that money at the end of 12 months. And so now it actually was a win-win. So for only 3% interest, I was able to spread that cost out over 18 months by using a transfer offer. And that's when I said, if it works like this for this wedding, why couldn't I do this for real estate? And that's when I started using it in my real estate because it just works so beautifully. Adrian, any aha moments from you today?
This one is just that I didn't know how fast when you do hard money. I'm surprised how fast when you get the finance, it's easier to take that route to pay the property fast, because I'll use a regular loan and the process is much longer. So
yes.
is this something that's it was just a reminder, and I thought it was interesting.
Yes, Adrian, thank you so much for that. It is faster because again, they're not having to comb through
You
all
still
of
do
your.
that, or you keep doing it?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Now I want to tell you about the credit card. You still do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I use the credit card thing all the time.
The only reason I asked because I use a Discovery card. I only use that because I thought I was gonna get to get cash back. That's why it's taking me so long to get my second property, because I want to pay that. Cause I use that to pay maintenance and things and sort that. I'm almost finished now, but I wish I talked to you about that. It would have been a lot more easier for me, and I want to got more better credit.
Yeah, and here's what you have to remember: if you're using credit
And
cards,
the interest rate it was higher too. So that's why
yes.
it got me longer to pay it back. So I just wish I still spoke to you first.
Yeah, using a credit card at the high interest rates is not a good strategy at all. The only way using credit cards works is if you do the transfer at 0% interest. That's because you're already paying a 3% transfer fee. And so you want to do the one at 0% interest on a transfer offer. If you don't do that, then you're paying 19, 22, 25% interest, and you don't want to do that. Yeah, so it only works if you're doing a 0% transfer option. So yes, and as far as hard money, Adrian, it is faster because the hard money lenders are just looking at the deal. They're not having to, and especially like Jonathan said, if they can do the evaluation in-house and not have to actually hire an appraisal, then it's going to go a lot faster as well.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Okay. Q, how about you? Any aha moments there? I know that you're chatting in the chat. Any big aha moments? Q says, do you have any joint venture deals? I didn't have an aha moment, but I love the real estate conversation. It gets and keeps me going. I do not do any joint venture deals except with my significant other. He and I will do some deals together, but I do not do any other partnership or joint venture deals outside of my personal relationship. Only because we're at the other end of that spectrum. We're retired, and so we're playing more these days and investing less since we already kind of have our portfolio put together. But if I were back in my 40s, I would definitely look at doing some joint venture deals. I hope that helps answer your question. Anyone else? I just want to say thank you so much for everyone being with us today. Several folks have had to jump off because and I get that on a Monday during the day, you have other options and other things that you're committed to. So I understand that completely. But go to kathybinner.com. You will find all of our free meetups, all of our courses. You'll see the whole membership site there. All of our replays are there. Everything that you need to know is there at kathybinner.com. So please feel free to tap in, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night at the Coin event if you're close enough to attend that. And with that said, we're going to go. Mark your calendar every third Monday at 12 noon. And definitely, if you're going to be a buy and hold investor and you want to be a landlord, definitely mark the November third Monday, because that's when I'll be presenting about filling and all kinds of tips and tricks on being a landlord. So we will see everyone next time. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you.